Welcome to this YouTube channel again. I'm always glad to have you back. Today, I just want to walk you through how to run your first application or your first analysis. Of course, we're talking about data analysis, right? So let's see how you can run your first data analysis here in VS Code. And in this video, I will do it in 3 different ways. I'll use the Google Colab, I'll use the Jupyter Notebook, and I'll use the VS Code. But I will make sure that I create a timeline for each of these so that you don't waste your time watching whichever environment you want to watch. Just go to that timeline and check out how to run the first application using that particular program you choose to use. So in this case, if you followed along in the last in the video where I talked about how to run pandas in VS Code, you should have run this and it should be working by now. So I assume that this is actually working. So I'm just going to walk you through a little bit of what you would see if all things work well for you and you're able to install Jupyter, the extension, and you see this environment, you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing here. And let me clear this and probably just minimize that. Okay, so we have this environment, and let me just delete this altogether. Now this is a very new file, intro.ipynb. Or in fact, I think I should just go into 01 lesson and let me call this file a new file, first pandas or first analysis .ipynb. Don't forget that. So now we have this. Once you hit the enter button, what you see is something like this. And this is called a cell. Now, whatever code you want to type in this cell, you can go ahead to type it, and you can run it using this execute cell button, right? Now, there are a few things I want you to notice, and I won't be talking too much about Jupyter because there are so many things to it. For instance, if you want to create Markdown, you can create Markdown. So think of Markdown like a way to just organize to structure your work. And by structuring, I mean you want to have some texts, and you want to have your code, and you want to have some other text. And I'll show you an example of what I mean in a moment. So this is what you see. And we said you do import pandas as PD. Now I have a few ways I can run these now. If you use the Shift Enter or Shift Return on Mac, it executes this cell and then it creates another cell below this cell. So if I do Shift and Return, again, don't forget it would ask me to select the kernel because I don't have kernel selected yet. And I've selected the kernel. It has imported pandas as PD. And I'll just show you a very short example because I know we'll still be talking about this. But the way to create a data frame, which we'll be talking about in the next video, is pd.dataframe. And it's, as you can, we have name, and you'll permit me not to explain this because I don't want this video to be too long. John Doe, Jane Brian, Stray Dre. I'm just making these names up. So let's say that these people, where do they live? I'm gonna call this location, or let me just call this country in the interest of time. We have country, we have a list of countries, and here we have let's say this is USA, let's say this is UK, and let's say this is Germany. All right, so once we've done this, let me have one more. Pratish Danush. Okay, and I'm pretty much sure that that name is an Indian name. All right, so I have this now created for me, and if I just use the Shift and Enter button, and you can see it runs that. And so this is what I have here, and this is just what I want to show you. But one more thing I want to show you is this. So let's say that I want to create a documentation, for instance, and when I mean documentation, I just mean more like a book or anything like that. I can use this Markdown, which I won't be talking so much about, but there are a few ways you can create headings, for instance, in the Markdown. So let's say create the data frame. Here, and again, once you do this, you have to still run it. And I've just run that now. As you can see, we have this create the data frame. And if you increase this and you run that again, see what you have. And I don't know if you noticed it, but this font size is reducing as I keep increasing the hash signs. So as you can see, we have these. Now, there are other things you can do here. You can also use the asterisk to slant this way, or if you have the double asterisk, it just boldens that text for you. And so this is perhaps what I want to show you here. But while you are also within the code, you can also have the comments, just like we have in Python, where we say create the data frame. And this is just a comment within the cell. And so this doesn't get executed because it's a comment within the cell. Now, I'm just going to run over the other ones because they are similar. So the same thing I've done here is the same thing that will happen there. And if you look at this environment, we have this import pandas as PD, and I'm just going to run the same way. Shift Enter will run that cell for me. And now, if you look at this place, we have a little bit more options here because we have edit, we have view, and you can just take a look at all these things. If you want to cut, you can cut this cell. If you want to copy the cell, you can copy the cell. You can also save and create checkpoint. And so I save and create checkpoint. And settings, you can see that I have these auto save documents. And so I don't have to save the document by myself. So there are a few things that you can do here, but the same thing that we did, and let me just put them side by side. So you see, I'm going to copy this. I already have import pandas as PD. I'm going to copy this entire thing since I already have it here so that I don't take too much time doing this. I'm going to copy this. I'll paste it here. And as you can see, I have the same thing here. So if I run this now with the Shift and Enter, I have this. And so I can now start looking at this data and just exploring and doing some other things with it, which we'll be looking at in subsequent classes. So thank you. Yeah, in Google Colabs, which I almost forgot, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. As you can see, we also have this cell here. It tells it we have this hard text. So if you hover over this place, you have this plus text. The same thing happens here. If you hover over this place, you have Markdown. So it's just a nomenclature that is different. Here in VS Code, it's called Markdown. Here in Colabs, it's called text. but you have the same thing, right? Look at here. Here, if you hover here, we have plus code. If you hover here, we have plus code. And let's go over to this place. If you click on that cell and if you hover here, you can see that we don't have that here. And that's because here we have this option that enables us to choose if we want that to be marked down or we want it to be raw. And so here, how to do that would be to click on this. And if you click this, not inside here, but on this cell, but outside, such that this is selected this way. If you enter the button, if you type the button or you press the button B, it will create a cell for you below that particular cell. And you can then do whatever it is you want to do. So let's say that I don't want this to be a cell that contains codes. I want this to be a cell that contains markup. I'll go ahead here to markup. And so now I can say create the data frame. And just as we did with the other one, I'm going to have 2 asterisks. And once I hit this shift enter, I can see it create the data frame. And so that's it. That's pretty much it. If you want to delete, you just click on that cell you want to delete, and you hit the D button on your keyboard twice. So D first and then D twice. So if you can try that out. And it's interesting to note that once you delete a cell, if you go to edit, you have this to undo. However, as you can see, I'm actually undoing, but there's nothing that is happening. And let's see, say I type something. And I go to edit, undo. You can see it undoes that for me because it's within that particular cell. So what I want you to notice here is that if you delete a cell, as you can see, we have undo cell operation here. You can't undo the cell with this undo. You can undo the cell with this particular undo operation. And so let's say you delete the cell D, you can just depress Z. It's going to bring back that cell for you. And so I just encourage you to explore all these things, all these options that you have here, so that you get accustomed to the environment, depending on whichever one you choose. I believe that it works here as well. I just depressed D twice, and I'm going to press Z, and it brings that, it restores that, it undoes that for me. And so that's it all in this video. So in the next video series, we'll just dive deep into the Pandas documentation and see what it has for us and lessons that we can learn from it. And so see you then. Bye.